Hello, you're watching News Mongolia on MNB World, and I'm your host Jargal Mahatufshin Jargal. With winter intensifying energy demand in Ulaanbaatar and Mongolia, we are reminding you to conserve electricity by unplugging appliances when idle. This straightforward practice not only saves energy, but also aids in cost management during peak periods. Your cooperation is appreciated during this critical time. Our top stories for today. Mongolian citizens born after April 11, 2012 will be granted ownership of 1,072 shares in Erdenes Tavantolgoi GSC. Severe winter conditions grip Mongolia, prompting urgent measures. The Sustainable Livelihood Tree project will be completed in 2023. For the news, stay with us. During its session on December 20, 2023, the Mongolian cabinet made significant decisions regarding the ownership structure of Erdenes Tavantolgoi GSC. The cabinet has proposed a draft resolution to the Parliament of Mongolia, aiming to adjust the shareholding structure in alignment with the principles of the Mongolian constitution.
The cabinet seeks to ensure equitable distribution of natural resource benefits among Mongolian citizens. To achieve this, they propose allocating 34% of the total shares of Erdenes Tavantolgoi GSC to Mongolian citizens. This allocation will cover not only current citizens but also future generations, including children born after April 11 of 2012, as well as individuals acquiring Mongolian citizenship in the future. As of today, Erdenes Mongolia LLC holds 81.5% of the shares, while approximately 2.5 million Mongolian citizens born before April 11, 2012 collectively own 18.44%. National enterprises retain ownership of the remaining 0.06% of shares. The draft resolution proposes granting 1,072 shares of Erdenes Tavantolgoi GSC to each Mongolian citizen born after April 11, 2012, who currently doesn't hold any shares. Additionally, ownership of shares in the company will be granted to every Mongolian citizen born on or after January 1st of 2024. According to Minister Amar Baisalan, the ownership will extend to 3.5 million citizens constituting 34% of shares. This means that 3,541,803 citizens of Mongolia will hold 34%, equivalent to 4.08 billion shares of Erdenes Tavantolgoi GSC. Consequently, state ownership will decrease to 65.9%. This decision reflects the government's commitment to fostering a more inclusive ownership structure, ensuring that the benefits of natural resources are shared more widely and equally among the entire Mongolian population.
Mongolia is grappling with an exceptionally harsh winter, with 81% of its territory blanketed in snow. Deputy Prime Minister and head of the State Emergency Commission, Amar Sakhan, warns that the winter and the spring of 2023 to 2024 will be especially challenging, marked by biting cold, heavy snowfall, and snowstorms.
This severe weather, identified as the worst drought in the past 2 decades, poses significant threats to herders and raises concerns for the agricultural sector, a vital component of the economy. Parliament's Standing Committee on Environment, Food and Agriculture convened this week to discuss the current situation and the outcomes of measures taken for the outwintering of cattle. Deputy Prime Minister Amar Sakhan, as directed by Parliament and the government of Mongolia, personally inspected winter conditions and mitigation efforts in 11 Soms of Arkhanqa and Zavkhan provinces. According to the Mongolian National Agency for Meteorology and Environmental Monitoring, 70% of the country's total territory is at high risk of drought, including Ovs, Sukhbatr, Khinti, Dornkov, and 26% at moderate risk. Deputy Prime Minister Amar Sakhan stressed that the drought crisis extends beyond herders, affecting the agricultural sector, a critical player in the nation's economy and food supply. To address these challenges, Deputy Prime Minister Marsehan outlined key actions and measures, including securing financial resources to boost local fuel supplies, releasing herders' meat into the market, increasing the availability of animal fodder, ensuring the readiness of health and public services during emergencies, preventing animal infectious diseases, and maintaining regular access to quality veterinary services. Moreover, the State Emergency Commission emphasizes the urgency of reducing or exempting taxes on essential goods like animal fodder, flour, and fuel imported through specific border ports, citing shortages and high transport costs. The SEC calls upon the Mongolian Customs General Administration to promptly address border and customs issues, urging relevant ministries to take immediate action to alleviate the situation.
Mongolia began implementing the decentralization policy, ensuring a balance of regional and local development and creating budget planning with citizens' participation since the end of 1990. The Sustainable Livelihood 3 project, which has become an impetus for increasing citizen participation, will be concluded this year.
The Sustainable Livelihood project has been implemented in 3 phases. Consequently, for the past 10 years, during January to June each year, the proposals were submitted to enhance the living environment with funding from the Local Development Fund. For instance, the Local Development Fund's performance in SOMS undergoes an annual evaluation. In the initial evaluation year of 2016, the average score of 330 indicators stood at 32%. Through comprehensive analysis, subsequent years saw the implementation of multifaceted activities, resulting in a notable improvement. By 2023, the average score for all indicators reached an impressive 71%, marking a successful achievement. When we look back 8 years ago, citizens' engagement was around 16%, and today citizens' engagement has reached over 80%. It means citizens are engaged in local budget expenditure-related issues. As part of the Sustainable Livelihood 3 project, more than 50,000 government employees were trained. In addition to the target group of 1.6 million local citizens, accessible information was distributed to some 3 million citizens nationwide. Multifaceted activities were organized to enhance citizen participation. The project also led to establishing and developing the management information system of the Local Development Fund and the LDF mobile phone application, facilitating the collection of proposals from citizens. Over the past 2 years, the application has garnered almost 600,000 electronic proposals. The government is committed to sustaining and further developing this vital infrastructure.
The mining and mineral resources sector is responsible for generating the majority of the country's economy. This project has been implemented successfully over the past 10 years. This is a miniature version of the policy on how the local community can benefit from income generated through the mining industry.
Decentralization, regional and local development discussions were held to review the achievements made within the framework of the Sustainable Livelihood program over the past 20 years. The focus was on examining how to sustainably carry out these results in the future and introduce them to other sectors.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Next, our program will turn our attention to foreign news, partnered with international news agencies. Israel's military said Wednesday that it struck over 300 terror targets over the last day in Gaza Strip as the war continued. Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant reiterated Tuesday that troops were working to completely clear out Hamas militants. Israeli troops have raided a series of hospitals and shelters in the north, detaining men in search for militants and expelling others taking refuge there. After meeting with Israeli officials Monday, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin urged Israel to protect civilians, but reiterated America's support for Israel in its war against Hamas. Austin's remarks signaled that the U.S. would continue shielding Israel from growing international calls for a ceasefire as the United Nations Security Council again delayed a vote, and would keep providing aid for one of the 21st century's deadliest military campaigns. Nearly 20,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, since Israel declared war on Hamas following its surprise attacks on October 7th that killed about 1,200 people, mostly civilians. The militants took about 240 hostages back to Gaza. Hamas controlled the Gaza Strip, and its health ministry doesn't differentiate between civilian and combatant deaths. Thousands more Palestinians lie buried under the rubble of Gaza, the United Nations estimates. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Wednesday that anyone thinking Israel will soon stop the war against Hamas is not connected to reality. In a recorded video address, Netanyahu repeated his point that all Hamas members from top to bottom have only two options: surrender or be eliminated. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared a commitment to continuing the fight, the complete elimination of Hamas, emphasizing a pursuit of victory. Netanyahu outlined the set goals, including the eradication of Hamas, the release of hostages, and the elimination of the threat from Gaza. He asserted an ongoing offensive against Hamas with determined resolve, employing aggressive tactics and leaving terrorists with only two options: surrender or face death. He spoke as the United Nations Security Council was expected to vote later on a resolution calling for an urgent and sustainable cessation of hostilities, amid reports of discussions on a potential new deal to secure the release of more Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Czech President Peter Pavel on Wednesday held talks with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in Paris. During a news conference following the meeting, they both pledged support to Ukraine and for the enlargement of the European Union. Both countries are aware of the importance of continued support to Ukraine and the risks of possible Russian success, noted President Pavel. The meeting came at the start of a two-day visit to the French capital by Pavel. As well as discussing Ukraine, the two leaders were also expected to discuss Gaza and the future of nuclear energy. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron emphasized the importance of natural alliances for the enlargement of the European Union. He highlighted significant decisions made at the European Council, including the initiation of accession talks for Ukraine and Moldova. In the face of the war returning to the European continent, Macron expressed a shared vision with unspecified allies on the strategic interest of welcoming new members to the European Union. Additionally, he pledged unwavering long-term support to Ukraine across political, diplomatic, economic, and military dimensions. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We will see you tomorrow with more news and updates. Goodbye.